Welcome everyone to Let's Talk Romance Books. And today we have a very special guest with us. Before introducing you to our featured guest today, my name is Lorelei of Lorelai's Lit Lair and the host of the Let's Talk Romance Books Club. So let me introduce today's special guest, who is Eloisa James. She is a New York Times bestselling author and professor of English literature who lives with her family in New York, but can sometimes be found in Paris or Italy. She is the mother of two and, in a particularly delicious irony for a romance writer, is married to a genuine knight. Eloisa, welcome, welcome. How are you today?
Very well. Thank you for having me. This is lovely.
Wonderful. It's so great to have you. So, question for you. And I just heard from your bio that you are married to an Italian knight. And I am too. That's such a happy coincidence. So
Brilliant.
that made me smile today. What made you smile today?
Oh, a bunch of stuff. I Zoom because my bio says I live at home with my children, but they fly the nest, and so we have a Zoom every Sunday, and we just had a Zoom with my husband and his wife and my daughter who's in Florence, and it was lovely. And yeah, we all smiled and laughed a lot. So
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, a question, because as a writer, do you have time to read? And if so, what are you currently reading?
I read a huge amount. So yeah, I don't think I could write if I didn't read. So I've been reading old books. Yeah, I've got a couple of them here
Oh,
by
good.
Georgette Hare, who you may know because she writes historical romance, but she also wrote a whole lot of mysteries. Like this one is called Why Shoot a Butler? You
Okay.
know, so I just read through her whole backlist of mysteries, and I have a bunch of romances as well. I have this one right here, just called After by Anna Todd.
Okay.
This is the 10th anniversary edition of a book that sold millions. So I figured probably gonna love that. I haven't started that yet. And then I have also a book. This is like a novel, like Mother, which I thought was funny because I find myself more and more like my mother all the time. So it says it's a compelling, warm, and complicated novel about women in tangled relationships. And I thought that sounds good. So yeah, I always have a lot of books around me because it makes me feel secure and comforted and ready to go. And I read a ton of romance. I mostly read that on my phone and my iPad as well. So I have,
Wonderful, wonderful. So um, in your bio, it says you're a professor of English literature, and you also, uh, aside from historical romance, you also write under another pen name.
well, I wrote a love story called Lizzie and Dante, a novel as Mary Bly. I'm just looking at the list here. Hi, Bridget. I have to say hi. And Charlene, it sounds like I didn't say Zoom with my son and his wife, or whatever it was. Luca and Sophia, and then my daughter, Anna, and that was a Zoom.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, so I forget what I was saying. What
oh
was
no, no, your Lizzie and Dante book.
Yes, yes, I have that too here because I'm
It's
about to send it to someone. So Lizzie and Dante is a love story about a woman who falls in love with an Italian chef. My husband not being a chef, but she goes to the island of Elba, which is where we went with our children every summer for years
um,
before they moved out. And so I know this island and I love the island.
wonderful, wonderful. Okay, do you have any pets?
We don't at the moment. Yeah. We lost our dog. So I have Leo, who if you're on my Instagram, you'll see pictures of Leo. That's Luca's dog. And since they often send him here for 3 weeks or so, because he's a pandemic dog, pandemic puppy, which means he's very anxious. So if they're traveling, we get Leo. And then Anna has two cats, Finn and Eloise. And yeah, I'm flying to Italy next week and I get to see them. I love them.
Oh,
So they're Siberians, the great cats.
oh, cute, cute. Um, Coffee or tea? And how do you take it?
Tea, tea
Tea
all the way. Yes.
all the way. Very
Oh, I said
government.
Alexander has two wives. Oh dear. I'm like just looking at the stream there. I just want to say hi, PJ. Um, I take tea and I'm really looking forward. I'm going to London on Thursday and I'm going to be seeing friends. I'm going to Manchester, I'm going to York, and I'm going to have high tea. And yeah, it's going to be lovely. So,
Wonderful. Can you complete this sentence for me? When I wake up every morning, I,
well, when I wake up every morning, I sit up and I start doing the New York Times spelling bee, which is a personal obsession of mine. If you've ever seen it, it's got 7 letters and one in the middle, and you have to make as many words as you can. And if you make enough words, it comes up and says, "You're a genius." And so for me, this has been sort of like that little kick to get out of bed. It's like, "You're a genius." All right, fine, go ahead. Because for a writer, your vocabulary is so important, um, that I actually like it when when there's a word there that I don't know, because I was checked yesterday and then I look up the definition. So I feel like I'm learning things. Hi, Lynn Rose.
yes,
So,
wonderful. Okay. Name one thing on your personal bucket list.
oh, I want to go to Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. This is a trip that my husband and I have dreamed about for a long time, and we were going to do it, and the pandemic hit. So
Oh,
how everything got canceled, and then since then things have just been so busy, but we're hoping to do it, that we haven't planned. You know what it's like if you have those big bucket lists, they take time and they take planning, and my husband Alessandro is the head of Italian at Rutgers and he runs a book series, and you don't go to Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam from the US with less than 3 weeks, in my view. So yeah.
very, very. Weirdest or unique thing you own?
Well, you asked me that before to set it up before. So I just thought, I don't know if it's the weirdest because I don't have a lot of weird things,
Or
but
unique.
I do have something that's entirely unique. So
Okay.
it's this little plaque. And if you can read it, it says in very juvenile writing, because the person who wrote it had only just learned how to read, it says, "Love is in the air," with a period afterwards. And what happened was this came home from school and the teacher actually called me and she said, we were going to write things about our family. And most people said, "I have a dog, I have a cat," and they did little pictures. And your son wrote, "Love is in the air, period." And when I asked him why, he said, "Well, that's what my mother writes. And so love is always in the air." So I was like, ah. So yeah, this is one of my most precious possessions.
Oh,
Um, I love it. So,
that is so sweet. Oh my goodness. Do you have any hobbies or particular skills aside from reading and writing?
um, no, I'm not very good at other things. I cook, but I don't do it very well. I am at the moment, I
Anything?
am completely obsessed with the Great British Sewing Bee. For those of you who've watched the Great British Baking Bee, there's also the Sewing Bee, which you can watch on BBC One player. And these people can sew everything. They can take a coat apart and sew it. And so I do have a sewing machine. It's right under my table right here, but I don't really know how to use it very well. So that might become my next hobby.
You
But
know, my grandmother used to sew clothes and everything, and I had a sewing machine. I got it when I got married, but I never used it. And I always said, "What can I make?" And I was
right.
thinking of pillowcases, but then when I got into reading, I said, I can make a backpack or something, a tote bag, a tote bag. Haven't
Well,
tried.
here's what I'm going to make. So I've already planned it out. I
Yes.
am going to make, I have all these leftover fabric, right? From just like things. And I am going to make book bags that are for Christmas presents because you know how we go through piles and piles of Christmas paper. So
Yeah.
I'm going to take, I actually figured out how to do it. I'm going to cut them out, sew them, put like, a ribbon around the top and give people their Christmas presents in them, and then they can use them to give someone else their things,
That,
their,
that's
so
so, yes,
cool.
that is
Yeah.
that is unique. That would be a lovely gift.
Yes.
Um, Okay, let's get into romance now. Um, did you always dream about becoming an author? And why romance? Can you share your story?
I did always think I might become an author. So because I grew up in a household where both my parents were authors. So it's kind of like, my dad won the American Book Award for poetry. So it was a bit, like you see it in professional sports all the time. Like I'm really into those shows on Netflix, Quarterback and Receiver, if you've seen those. I grew up in Minnesota where we're really into football. Anyway, the thing that's really struck me about those is how many of those households had a dad, in many cases, who was a professional player. Right. And that was my life. Like my parents, when it was the weekend or we had a vacation, they would say, "What are you going to write? What's your project? What are you going to do?" And so it was always about writing. And I used to write little stories and I would sell them to my mom for 10 cents so I could get candy. And, um, I was always selling my stories, and a lot of them were romances. And so when I when I married Alessandro, if you grew up in Italy, you don't have student loan debt. And I did. And so we had one baby, Luca. And then I really wanted another one, but he felt we had too much debt. And that debt was all mine. It was school loan debt. And of course, compared to what kids have now, it wasn't that much. But for two people who were planning to become professors, it was seemed insurmountable, right? And so I decided I was going to write something and make money, because that's what my dad did. When my dad wanted to take us to live in England for a year, he wanted to go to France for a year, he would write to HarperCollins, which was my editor for 20 years, and they would send him a $10,000 advance, which is what he got for years. And we would take that $10,000 and we go to France. Back then that was a lot of money because we didn't live very, in a very fancy way. So yeah, so I wrote a romance, and it ended up going up for auction, and it sold for a couple $1,000s over my student loans. But I had to write 3 romances for that because that's how it goes in an auction. You bid on one, then you bid on two, then you bid on three. So it was wonderful because I paid off my student loans, and then I wrote 3 romances of Potent Pleasures, Midnight Pleasures, and Enchanting Pleasures. And I really loved writing them. And it was a wonderful balance to being an academic when you're teaching and, you're sort of grading people all the time. And you you're always judging or being judged. And the great thing about romance is that, I know there's judgment out there, but I don't read what readers say to each other. I figure that's for them. So what people write to me is always genuinely really nice. And I talk to people and they're super nice on my Facebook group and super supportive. So if I'm having a hard day, I go into Lindau Castle, which is my Facebook group, and I just lurk in there and push like a few times, but I just feel part of the community, because that's one thing that academics a little bit more hard. It's a very challenging competition. It's, red in tooth and claw. Romance isn't. I find overall that readers and authors really like each other, and we tend not to get into too bad fights. And you would know better. You're running a book club. Maybe
Yes.
people fight over books in your book club, but I
Yeah.
don't.
Well,
I'm like,
what I've experienced or what I've learned is that, we are all born in different places in the world, and we have no control over the where we are born into, the family we have, our experiences is about, our surrounding. So when we read books, we either resonate with stories that are familiar to us, and those that aren't, we kind of like, you can take it as, oh, I'm learning something interesting or different from
right,
from what I know,
right.
and I think that's great for empathy, and that's why I love romance novels.
Yeah,
So,
that's really true. And I also find like people who've read me for a long time, like PJ is here, and she's read me for a million years. I think PJ and I have been together since Potent Pleasures. Um, they say, "Oh, I didn't like this one," and you know what? That's fine, because not every book's going to work. Like the book that's out right now is By Counting Love. This is actually the English version, right?
um,
And the heroine is dyslexic. And so I got a couple people saying, "Oh, I don't know, I prefer my heroines to be perfect, basically." And
yeah,
I'm like, "Well, I've written a lot of those heroines, so there's those books for you." And then there's other lovely letters I'm getting from people saying, "Oh my God, I was so glad that she wasn't perfect, that she,
yeah,
dyslexia was something I'd never seen in historical romance." And I do think that I use my own experiences. So I didn't, until I had a student with dyslexia the year before I wrote this, and he was diagnosed while at Fordham. So it was a real shock for me. He got all the way to Fordham. And then he was finally just, diagnosed because he worked so hard. That's how smart he was. And I thought, geez, what would it be like, in 1804? What would it be like if you were dyslexic? they would think you're a complete idiot. And, with him, I just thought, well, must not have had a good high school. And I was like, remember to do that spell check, but I love your ideas, but let's do the spell check, that kind of thing. Because I didn't have the wherewithal to understand that, I think it's very hard to diagnose people with dyslexia. Obviously, it's a
Yes.
skill.
Yeah.
So I just had to make that into a book. And I did have a wonderful time like researching it and trying to figure out what it meant not to be able to read at the time.
Yes. I loved the how do you say, the neurodiversity, like having a character who can't read, but you really showed how, even with anyone, when how people that are blind, they have more sense of touch and hear and smell. So we develop other strengths, you
Yeah.
know? And so tell us now, what inspired you to write The Accidental
Or
Bride?
Viscount in Love or
Um, Viscount in Love is part of The Accidental Brides,
oh,
correct?
right, it's right. Yes. I thought
So
you were trying to
how
what
did it come to be? Did the book come before the series, or was it the series and then the book?
comes before the series. Yeah, the book came, and then I was like, oh, I have these wonderful young women who I figured out, and I had sort of thought, because I could sort of see what I knew what was going to happen in a couple of the other books already. And I could see them working with an accident, sort of an accidental marriage. You don't mean to get married, but you sort of accidentally get married. Because I didn't want to have forced marriage. This doesn't sound very good. But I did want to say something about what you just said. Is that I found in my research, looking on sites for people with dyslexia, people talking about it, reading about it, the fact that my heroine, she not only can she paint, but because she's a lady, they would only let her paint flowers and rabbits and kittens. She is, the best flower painter. She's like fantastic. I don't want to wreck it for anyone, but she's an amazing flower painter because being good at something is doing it over and over and over and over. It's one reason why I read and read and read and read and read because I don't want to lose my ability to write or just start writing the same thing over and over. I learned so much, for example, from young romance writers now.
Yes.
Um, I really do. I learned tremendous amounts.
Yes. And you were talking about Tori, Victoria, who is the heroine in this story. And she deals with dyslexia and how society and how she goes about. But I also know that you talk about mental health with the hero, Dominic, Dom or Dominic. And do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, to some extent. I mean, talking it sounds very serious the way you've got it like that. I
Yes.
mean, he's engaged in a battle, right, in the House of Lords, and it's a battle to ban slavery, and he's not going to win. He's just not going to win. That battle is not going to be won for, another 30 years. But I wanted him, I didn't want to, I'm sort of sick of heroes who are also perfect, right? So they're fighting the good fight and boom, they're the ones that are going to get slavery canceled. Well, you know what? A lot of people fought that battle and didn't get it done. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to have a hero who is actually fighting it over and over again, losing his temper in the House of Lords,
Yes.
and not going to win. So how do you live with the fact you're not going to win with the one thing that you said you were going to do with your life?
Yeah.
Um, I think that Tori really helps him come to terms with that, and we have the belief, it's a good fight. It was a good fight, no matter what. Somebody's got to fight it. So, but that was interesting for me too, because I've written a lot of alpha heroes who are absolutely, the billionaire type. Then when they win, they win, right? They're going to win everything.
Yes.
And and so it was fun to write an alpha who's not going to
Yes.
win. It's
Yes.
just a big part of the book, and I don't talk about the slavery battles at all. It's not relevant to the book at all. But
But we know that he goes and he tries to,
he tries and tries, yeah, and he fails.
yes, yes. So we know that it was inspired from, how about the series? What is coming next?
Okay, well, next is Hardly a Gentleman, which is already up. Um, it's already up for pre-order, and it's Clara. So in this book, Clara is making little reticules, which are tiny little, she does all she likes to do is read. She's kind of like me, right? She doesn't have any skills. The only thing she can do are make these little reticules, and she makes them in the face of a cat or a mouse, and she uses little wire
Yeah,
sticks to come decide to make the whiskers. So she'll make any kind of animal that has whiskers. Like, who knew that a kangaroo had whiskers? I did not till I started looking at this. One thing I learned from the book. But that's all she knows how to, and she makes those like for fun, but she carries them with her. And she gets in a lot of trouble at the beginning of the next book, Hardly a Gentleman, like a lot of trouble. And she ends up running away and going to Scotland and pretending to be a housekeeper. And she arrives at a Scottish castle in the Highlands. And I absolutely love my hero in this book. I just love him. I love her too. But the book opens with him. He fishes, he fly fishes in the stream, right? But he's not going to wear his kilt into the stream because of those pleats. Think about how hard those pleats are to keep, we all know about pleats, right? So
yeah.
he fishes naked in the stream. So she comes around the side of the castle looking for the owner of the castle, and there he is. And she's like, whoa, whoa. So it's just a lot of fun. A really fun book to write. If there were sort of maybe more serious themes in a way in Viscount in Love. Um, Hardly a Gentleman is it's just a very light book. And I want to say my daughter Anna helps me a lot with my books and reads them. And I think the highest praise she's ever given me was when she finished this one. She said, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. I want to be with them. I want more of their banter. I want more of their laughter because they are seriously flirtatious and fabulous. And he figures out right away that she's not a housekeeper, but he thinks she's got like a titled husband who's going to come running after her. So he's planning to go down to England and shoot the guy where she doesn't have a titled husband. And, obviously, once someone finds out they're in the house together and realizes she is the Honorable Miss Clara Vetri, boom, accidental marriage. So I think people will really love it. I think it's, sometimes you write a book that's got sort of more deeper themes, and sometimes you write one that's just sort of delicious.
I love it. I love when, the characters are the ones who develop the story. They
Right.
put the face and everything. I absolutely love the audiobook of Viscount in Love,
Right.
by Mary Jane Wells. I
Yeah.
think I loved the secondary characters, the twins in the story.
Yeah.
Um,
Florence. Yeah.
yes, Florence and Valentine. Uh,
Valentine. Yeah.
and yes, definitely. It's one of my favorites. Thank you so much for writing it. I can't wait to get to the next one. Um, what do you hope, what are three important facts that you want readers to know about your books? Three.
Three facts, huh? Okay, well, um, I think that the most important thing in a romance is not the sex, which many people think is it's the conversation. We marry people whom we can imagine talking to the rest of our life. So that for me is a really crucial part of any book, the way in which they talk to each other. And the hero and heroines that I read, they always talk to each other in different ways. Some of them are banter, like Anna loves, and some of them are serious, some of them are, friends to enemies kind of thing. Because I don't think it's the idea that you start a conversation that you want to keep going into your 90s. So that's, I think, a really important part. Another really important part I think about my books is that because I'm a Shakespeare professor, because I have a PhD in historical literature, while everything isn't true to life, a lot of the facts will be. So if someone has dyslexia, I'm really looking at how what dyslexia was at the time. Or I read a book called what is it called? And I can't even remember it now. Somebody help me. Charlene, what's the one where he's drunk? I have an alcoholic hero whose name I can't remember at the moment, whose book I can't remember. Somebody help me out here. And it took me forever researching that book to find, because we medicalize alcoholism, right? They didn't. So various books like Too Wild to Wed, or Too Well to Wed, the hero has got what we now call PTSD, but of course they described it perfectly at the time,
Yeah.
right? They described it in ancient Rome, people with PTSD, but how did they describe it in the 1800s? So I would say number two, that my books are, to the extent to which I can make them, historically accurate. Um, and then number three, I would say, is that my books owe a great deal to everyone else who's writing about love. Whether they're writing literature. Oh, yes, it's The Taming of the Duke, says PJ. Right. He had to be tamed because he couldn't be medicalized out of it. So that's a really fun book, I think. Anyway, I I think that I draw enormous recess from all kinds of books, and everyone writing about love. So I find that so inspiring. So I go to all kinds of things. And I'll just give you a little example. Last night, I went to a movie called The Conclave. Have you heard about it?
I
It's,
think so. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
With
about,
Ralph
you know, what?
Fiennes, with Ralph. Uh,
Ralph Fiennes
yes.
it's got Isabella Rossellini, and it's about, it sounds so dry. It sounds so boring to me. It is about choosing the next pope, but it's kind of a thriller, right?
Yes.
There was this wonderful moment when they were talking about faith, just briefly, because this is very, you don't have to be Catholic, anything. I mean, it is a thriller, um, and beautifully acted. And somebody says, well, if you have certainty, the most dangerous thing in the world is certainty, because then you don't have faith. And
Mm.
it just ironed out the book that I'm writing right now, which is the next book, which is called The Last Lady B. Um, and in The Last Lady B, one of the things that I realize is that you have to have faith in the person you fall in love with, right? You are never going to have certainty. So I'm bringing it into the conversation in that book, but it's something that I think is crucial to all of my books. It's that the idea in which the moment when you're saying, I fell in love, what you're really saying is, I have faith that you love me, and I have faith that I will love you until death do us part. So there you go. Go see The Conclave. I have no connection to it, but boy, is that a great
The
book.
trailers yesterday. So, but anyway, what do you hope, Eloisa, that readers will experience or gain when reading your stories?
I want them to leave happy. I know, I mean, people up here were saying with Lizzie and Dante, I published Lizzie and Dante as by Mary Bly because it is a tearjerker. There's no getting around it. I cried a ton writing that book. I mean, it took me 4 years to write. I cried for years, right? Every time I read it. But when you read Vicon in Love or any of my other romances, I've got another one here that's a big reader favorite. It's probably sold the most worldwide, When Beauty Tamed the Beast.
Yes.
Um, I want you to just feel happy, to have that lift, to have that moment of like, oh, I walked into this world and I came out feeling fresher, warmer, cleaner, like the world is a good place. We have so much anxiety these days, incredible anxiety.
I,
And I think romance is one of the great healing parts. And, just in our divided nation, I don't want to talk about politics at all, but I have to say, in our divided nation, romance is the thing that brings us all together. We can all talk about romance. So, those of us who love it, love it.
yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, I don't care what you're doing or what your situation is. I hope that you leave happier, even if, as is many of the cases, you pick up a lot of readers when their lives are in turmoil or when they're in chemo or when something unfortunate is happening. If you could
Yeah,
help at all in those moments, that's great.
wonderful. Where can readers find you? On
I
social media?
books. Oh, and social media. Oh, well, so I have a wonderful Facebook group called Lindo Castle, which let me show you this. So here is Lindo Castle. Oh, whoops. See,
Okay.
there's the actual map of Lindau Castle,
Yes.
which was a big series of mine with the wilds. And you can see the actual map on the top of my Facebook group. And that is a lovely group. I think all of ladies, I'm not sure, but Charlene is on here and she is just a wonderful person who runs it and is such a warm and loving presence in there. And I go in, and what I mostly do is every once in a while I post historical articles that I find, because those are not always of interest to everyone on the bigger Facebook group. I also have a bigger Facebook, page. but
Yes.
I put the historical articles like weird things, like things that are found in shipwrecks or a dress from the 1800s, or they just found another waltz, a Mozart waltz. They just found it, right? Something like that. I'll just go stick it in Lindau Castle and like, look at this, isn't this amazing? So I have that, and then I have Instagram, which tends to be sort of a mix of a little bit more personal. So you mentioned
Yes.
I did just post this. I mean, I was writing, right? I was like, okay, I'm gonna roast some squash. I was actually planning to make squash soup or something really virtuous, and I forgot all about it. And I went in there 3 hours later. And if you look on Instagram, there are these little black withered things. You didn't even know what they were, right? No one knows what they were. They were delicata squash. But yeah, I just forgot about it because when I'm writing, that's what I do. So, and I'm loving the book. Hardly a Gentleman is through the proofs. So now it's The Last Lady B. And I got up this morning and,
Oh,
came here and started reading because it's
well,
so.
I'm so excited. And when does it release? When does the Claire's book release?
That I think is July or no, April.
Okay.
April. I believe it's April. And then The Last Lady B doesn't have a solid date yet, but it's fall 2025.
Okay. Oh,
It's
so we'll
going to
have
be
to.
very exciting. Yeah, it's very exciting. It's a change for me. It's a slightly different kind of book. I hope everyone loves it. I mean, it's Leonora's story, so you will have known her. She's the sister in this book,
Yes.
shortened to Nora. But in this book, she marries a man who's 70 years old. She's the
Uh,
fourth bride. So,
yeah.
and she shows up in the next book, but that was a really interesting story for me to write, and I'm loving writing it. So it's Hardly a Gentleman and then The Last Lady B.
Okay. So,
Hi, Linda. Remember, yeah. So let me just say one last thing is that I have a big website. There is tons of information on that website. I mean, tons. And also, if you sign up for my newsletter, um, Charlene and I, through the newsletter, give out a lot of books. So she just sent me a great giveaway. It's going to give out 10 books to everyone on the newsletter. So you can sign up on my website. And basically, what I do with the newsletter, it doesn't go out all that often. I'll tell you any information I have. And then I always put a personal picture in there, one that I wouldn't share on Instagram, maybe a little bit more personal, like, a picture of my kids or a picture of me doing something or,
wonderful.
something a bit more personal because I feel like that's kind of for friends, that one.
Yes, yes. Well, that was the last question I was going to ask you about your newsletter. So that's perfect.
Great.
So anyway, thank you so much for giving us a lot of insight about your work and about yourself. And now we're going to go ahead and join our group inside the Let's Talk Romance Books Club. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Everyone on Facebook. Bye.
Bye.